Good morning. My name is George Latimer, Westchester County Executive, and I'm here to do my charter responsibility to take a very good piece of legislation and sign it into law. The initiative for this legislation came from my colleagues in the Westchester County Board of Legislators, and for my purposes, this is an example of the two separate co-equal branches of government working together to accomplish something. And in this particular case, it was the work of the County Board of Legislators under the leadership of Ben Boykin, who's going to be speaking in a minute, and the legislator who advocated for the legislation, Legislator Nancy Barr, in really working this idea together. The credit comes from the advocacy community, and we're here obviously in the home for Westchester Disabled on the Move, Mel Tansman, who's a longtime leader of this organization, who will speak as well, to help those of us who don't personally suffer from one type of situation or another to understand what those problems are for those who do deal with disabilities in some way, shape, or form. And how do we create a structural way for this county government to listen to those concerns, identify areas of legislative outreach, identify areas of funding priorities, and to do that in a way where this Board of Legislators and our executive branch can coordinate and make real improvement so that folks who are disabled have a better life here in Westchester County, because we have listened to advocates, we've worked through our professionals, and we've come up with a better way to do that. We're also joined here by our Commissioner of the Department of Community Mental Health, Michael Orth, and Evan Latania, who heads our Office for the Disabled. And of course, I see in the audience the Majority Leader of the Board of Legislators, Catherine Parker. I'm scanning quickly to see if I have any other legislators to mention, but I suppose Chairman Boykin will catch any of those individuals as we go forward. There's a lot of folks who are going to talk about all of these things, and then I have a high-quality pen to sign this into law. I'm sorry, we got to get better quality pen in the. Somebody, Joe Scamato, we got to get better pens to give to the legislators when we're doing these important bills. But first, let me invite our host, Mel Tansman, who's Executive Director, Westchester Disabled on the Move, to share his thoughts, and then we'll have the rest of the folks here speak.
Great.
Mel?
Thank you, George.
Thank you.
As George said, I'm Mel Tansman. I'm the Executive Director here at Westchester Disabled on the Move, and I want to welcome you first. On behalf of the board and the staff of WDOMI, Westchester Disabled on the Move, we welcome County Executive George Latimer and today's honored guests to our offices on the occasion of the signing of this legislation, and just to make you aware that it is also Disability Awareness Month. This law is going to empower people with disabilities to play an active role in making our county more accessible and a great place for people with disabilities to live, work, study, and enjoy. The county's goal to include all residents in an open manner gives life to a phrase that the disability community uses a lot: nothing about us without us. So I'm going to keep it real brief. I want to thank the county executive and members of the Board of Legislators for this opportunity to work together for a barrier-free Westchester. I'm going to do a little bit of a pitch in that we have some information on the side here, including we're having our 35th anniversary Strive for 35 event. If you're interested, please grab a card over here, and that's my little shameless pitch this morning. On that point, I guess, Chairman Boykin, would you like to come up?
Sure. Thank you, Mel, and good morning, everyone. And congratulations, Mel, on your retirement, right? That's what happened this year. So congratulations for you for all your efforts and your many years of service. As mentioned, I'm Ben Boykin, Chairman of the County Board, and I'm joined today by Majority Leader Catherine Parker and Legislator Nancy Barr. I don't see any other legislators, and if I do, I'll recognize them. And we've also been joined by our Chief of Staff, Dennis Powell. Last night, the board passed with unanimous bipartisan support, 13-0, this legislation to establish the Advisor Council on People with Disabilities. Many of you attended our committee meeting yesterday. It was a legislation committee. Seniors and Constituents Committees, and also our Appointments Committee met at 1 p.m. to talk about this legislation. Now, let me just take you back a couple months ago. The county executive and I had been talking about this for many months. And then Legislator Nancy Barr says, oh, I have someone in my district who's been talking about this. And I says, Legislator Barr, why don't you, working with our majority leader and working with our legislative director, make this happen and get this bill done. And we want to get it done and signed in National Disabilities Awareness Month. And that is why we're here today for this signing. We are now given a seat at the table for people with disabilities. We want to hear your voice. We want to work with you. This board, which will have 19 individuals from various areas of disabilities, some of the individuals from the county. There will be 4 at-large members appointed by the county executive. 3 members will be appointed by the Board of Legislators. And it was asked yesterday at the committee meetings, well, what about if the group gets expanded? We will be open to do that over time. We want to get it started. We want to get it up and running so that you, individuals with disabilities, will have the seat at the table to be able to advocate for legislation, to be able to advocate for funding, to be able to work with us at the local level, the county level, and the state level so that people with disabilities can be and will be heard. So we're very pleased that this bill has been passed and it will be signed and appointments will start being made immediately. And with that, I think I should ask Legislator Nancy Barr to come up and talk about this, and then the majority leader, if she wants to come up. Okay, thank you.
Good morning. Good morning. I just want to say that the legislature serves a different purpose than the executive branch. And as you heard the county executives say, we are co-equal branches of government. But in our job is to meet with our constituents, get out there in the community, find out what's going on, and see if we can make people's lives better. A couple of, I guess it was just last year, I had a conversation with Mel Tansman at an event, and he said, you know, I really feel like, or the disabled community feels like, we're sort of not getting the attention that we think we deserve. And it's wonderful that you're doing all these great things in government now, and he didn't use this term, but other people have used the term. It's sort of a renaissance for county government this last year and a half. But it really, it made an impression on me that he said that, and he gave me a couple of examples. So when Maria Samuels came to see me, and she's actually my constituent, we talked about this, and she was, she talked about some of the issues that the community, the disabled community faces. And one of the things she said is, you don't even have an advisory board for people with disabilities. And that really surprised me. I hadn't realized that. And that is when I went, to speak with our chairman and found out that that is something that was being, considered. So we were able to get this done, and it's really one of my proudest moments as a legislator. And I'm looking forward to, hearing what the committee comes up with as things that might be things for us to focus on in the future. So thank you for letting me serve you.
It's always hard being like the third, fourth politician, I feel like there are a lot of political speeches. I'm going to go back to what Mel said earlier, nothing about us without us. And I think that, unfortunately, we've seen at the board in the last year decisions being made regarding even voting machines, where there was an issue that tremendously affected the disabled community, and that there wasn't a voice at the table. This gives you that place, that table. And I think as a board, we are so proud of this legislation. And the county executive said it perfectly. This is really where, as co-equal branches of government, not only are we ensuring that there's this board during, that the George Latimer is wonderful to open that up as an idea for his administration, but that this should go on in perpetuity, and that's how the legislative board has really acted on this. So we're very pleased for you, and again, use your voice. You have this place at the table. Thank you.
Two members of our executive branch are tasked with activities within this area, and they deal with these things every day. They both have professional background. I'm going to ask our Commissioner of the Department of Community Mental Health, Michael Orth, to speak, and he'll be followed by Evan Lataner, and then we'll open it up to any press questions that we have.
Thank you. Thank you. Good morning, everyone. I want to congratulate and thank our County Executive and Board of Legislators and all the advocates for today and this wonderful opportunity in creating the council. I've had the pleasure of serving as commissioner for a few years, but I've been in this field for 30 years, and I've been with the department for 25 years. And the saying that Mel said, "Nothing without us, without us, about us without us," resonated with me as a young social worker. And what that means is really our people with lived experience, family members, recipients, are not only attend conferences, but it's really embedded in policy, decision making, and how we evaluate our programs. So I think that mantra is so critical as we move forward with this council. Our Department of Community Mental Health is looking forward to being part of the committee, really going in, looking at issues. And in my position, I represent, or I have the privilege of working with people with mental health, substance use, and developmental intellectual disabilities. And while we do have a lot of committees, the nice structure of this new committee and council is that we bring the various disability communities together and look at various trends, issues that we can, through our force together, really take on. So we're looking forward to this opportunity. We thank our county executive, we thank the Board of Legislators, and thank the advocacy community for making this possible today. So thank you.
Good morning, everybody. I'm Evan Lataner. I'm Director of Westchester County Office for People with Disabilities. I want to thank the County Executive and the Board of Legislators for this great opportunity. I think this council has been long overdue. This is going to be an opportunity for us to partner with the advocacy agencies such as Westchester Disabled on the Move, Westchester Independent Living Center, also other advocates and individuals with disabilities are moving things forward for equal access, transportation, employment opportunities, and so much more. So with that, I know you've been listening to a lot of people. I'll thank you again, and I look forward to be part of this great opportunity and moving things forward in a positive direction. Thank you so much.
So just before we open it up to any questions that we may have from the media, it could be directed to any of our speakers here today. This is a beginning, not an end. The creation of a body that will allow for dialogue for people from all circumstances to be able to participate and talk about policy and talk about legislation and talk about funding priorities. All of that is what we've accomplished here today. So it's the first step, and what we hope the fruits of which will be seen in future pieces of legislation that the legislature will consider in administrative policies and directions that our executive branch people will have. And as we approach a budget season every time this year, that we put money behind the things we believe in. There's also one other message here that doesn't relate specifically to this issue. You're watching right now a certain dysfunction in Washington, D.C. You're watching a battle between the legislative branch and the executive branch. You're looking at an executive branch that wants to claim executive privilege and not give to the Congress information and response that they need to have. There is a legitimate role for two separate branches of government. And I served as a legislator for 30 years in 3 different levels of government before I became an executive. But what happens today is the way it has to work, the way it should work, where initiative can come from the legislative branch, as in other times the initiative comes from the executive branch. But both branches work together. And as was pointed out, this bill that's being signed into law in the next few minutes was passed bipartisanly at the legislative level. There was no partisan disagreement, not because everybody thinks as one, but because we find common ground. And when you watch Washington, D.C., you may give up hope. You may say that it's not possible for people to ever come to agreement when they have such deep disagreements. Today tells you that it is possible. It depends on decision makers who want to make sure that credit is shared and not gobbled up. It shows you that if you focus on the end product of the process and not just the process, then you don't worry about who has which authority and who has that. Do the right thing. And the right thing will be agreed upon by both parties, by different levels of government, by different people. Today, what I'm going to sign into law is the product of a good legislative process. I'm happy to perform my charter responsibilities in making it a law, but the credit goes to Nancy, the credit goes to the Board of Legislators, the credit goes to the advocacy community that put this issue on the table, and again, it's just the beginning. So with that, I'm going to take the, I think you may have it there, Mel, that folder.
Oh, yes.
Okay. This is it, buddy. This is,
When I read it.
I don't know. But the document has been certified by the clerk of the County Board of Legislators that this Act 215, 2019, passed the Board of Legislators on the 7th day of October by 13 votes for and 0 votes against. And now on this, the 8th day of the month of October, I'm very honored to sign this as County Executive into law. And so it is. As I said, we'll get you a better pen, Nancy.
The official Board of Legislators.
So for our friends who are here in the press, if you have any questions, you can direct it to any of us up here. We're happy to try to answer it. Absent that, you can certainly interview people one-on-one if you'd like for that benefit as well.
My question, how many people will this board represent? How many people are in the county who would fall under?
There are approximately.
You want to get to the
20
microphone, by the way.
Okay. Around the nation and also in Westchester, about 20% of the population have some kind of a disability, be it age-related or developmental from birth or intellectual disability. So this does have an impact on a significant part of our population, our children, our mothers, our fathers, and our colleagues. So there are quite a number of people. I believe, I'm trying to remember the exact number, and it doesn't come to the top of my head right now. But like I said, it's between 15 and 20%, I would say.
When are they going to first form, first hold their meetings, timetable?
Well, the next action will be appointing the 19 members of the advisory board, and in the legislation, the legislature has identified 7 members as having certain disabilities and identified in the legislation as intellectual developmental disability, physical disability, blindness, legal blindness, deaf or hard of hearing, mental health disability, autism, and learning disability as being component experiences for 7 of those members. The act of appointment, I believe, now let me just go through the bill itself. There are 3 at-large members to be appointed by the Board of Legislators, so I assume that'll be action that Chairman Boykin will direct. That will have to happen at one of their next meetings. There are 7 members, as I mentioned. There are 4 at-large members, and then we have ex officio members that come from the various departments of county government. And those will be from the Office for People with Disability, Community Mental Health, Social Services, Health and Emergency Services, and each of those different ex officio members will be identified probably within the week, so that, and most likely it'll be the commissioners or the directors of those departments, unless they choose to designate somebody else to serve as a member of this board. I have the opportunity to designate one member to be chairman of the council, and that's after all the members have been appointed, and I would not make that appointment without consulting with the chairman of the Board of Legislators, and we'll see if we can have the joint agreement. So I would say probably it'll take us a few weeks, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, to put all of this together. We are going into budget season. That's going to engage some of our attention. But I think it's certainly reasonable that if this board can be put together within the month, they'll have their first meeting, organizational meeting, and then go from there. That seems like a reasonable expectation.
Yeah, and what happens with the appointments that required, they will have to come to the appointments committee, and the appointments committee will send out a letter inviting them to come in for an interview. So that, just trying to schedule interviews sometimes can take a little time, but it will go through the appointments committee for 7 plus the 4 from the county executive and the 3 from the Board of Legislators. So
So it's going to be a total of how many?
19.
Okay,
19.
people altogether.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, and also we've been joined by our communications director, Jason Stravokas. I forgot to mention him earlier.
And I should, please go ahead.
So it's 19 members, but only 14 are actually voting members. So the ex officio members are not voting members.
I should point out from the executive branch, we have Blanca Lopez, who's joined us here. Joe Scamato from our communications team is here as well, and Carl and Chelsea Pagano also from our communications team. One of the process you should know in the appointing process, the way it works in the county government, different from the federal government, is that when an appointment is made, that person begins to serve, and then the confirmation process follows. If for some reason that person does not get confirmed by the Board of Legislators, then they cease to serve. However, once those appointments are sent from the proper appointing authority, then those people begin to serve, and then they go through the review process. They have to take an oath, etc. So I think it's realistic to think, because this is important, that within the month, the first organizational meeting could occur, even as it takes. Because the Board of Legislators meets at set periods. Our next meeting is going to be in 2 weeks. They have one meeting in November. Whatever that process is for review, that will not hold up getting this committee together and getting it moving. And often what happens is that the legislator who sponsors the bill comes to the first meeting and sort of explains what the legislative charge is for the meeting, and I'm sure Nancy will do that, and then the thing will be off and rolling and result to come. Because we are in a budget period. This would be the best time for them to start talking about budget priorities. So right off the bat. Any other questions for any of our guests? And if not, you're welcome to interview anybody one-on-one. Mel, thank you for hosting us here.
Thank you so much
And
for having us.
thank you for your
Once
great
again,
service over many, many years. Thank you all. Have a good day.